there are two things. When you're dealing with anatta, there are two things you must know clearly. Not just these two. There are two things. How did the Buddha explain anatta? Number one, he takes it through the journey of understanding five aggregates. Anatta cannot be explained separate from the five aggregates. Use five aggregates. Okay? Do you understand that? Number one. Number two, the five aggregates which you must perceive experientially as impermanent dukkha. These two. Okay? I stop here. Digest this first. Digest this first. So, to learn anatta, to perceive anatta, what do you need? Answer? The impermanence and the suffering of the five aggregates. Okay? So, yeah? Okay, what are the five aggregates? Now your turn.
Form, feeling, perception,
A-class student. Very good. Okay, now he comes. What is impermanent? Suffering. Subject to change. Fit to be regarded as. This is mine. This I am. This is myself. Okay? So when we talk about atta, now I flip it around. Atta, self, the soul. Actually, the soul has these components. It belongs to me. The soul is I. Because it belongs to me, there is an I, therefore, there is a soul. You own something, you identify with something, collectively, it's a soul. Okay? Based on what is written here. Then I lost the world. This is where, because you wanted reality as is. I repeat, So relax first. Okay, relax. The form is mine. Because back to the aggregates, the form is mine. I am the form. Therefore, there is a self. The feeling is mine. I am feeling. Therefore, there is a self. The perception is mine. The I am perception. Therefore, there is a self. Then you say, this is not how I think. Okay, how do you think? You tell me. You say there is a self. Right? You say there is a self. Now I ask you to define that self. How come you say there's a self? How come? Cannot smell, cannot taste, cannot touch. Think only. You know how many times you think wrongly? Up until now, you should know you think wrongly a lot. But there is a self. Why? So you tell me, how come there is a self? Where is your self? Where is the self? Where is the soul? You tell me.
Soul actually is a five aggregates.
But the five aggregates are impermanent. So how?
Then it is in theory, but we still treat them as ourselves.
Very good. You treat it. You treat your aggregates as mine. You treat the aggregate, you identify with the aggregates. And then you say, because I must put them together, there is a self, there's a soul. That's why the Buddha in some sutta will say, is the self in the form? That die one, Is the self in the feeling? Is flirting? Is the self in thoughts? Keeps changing? Then you say consciousness. But consciousness arises because of the other four. There is no separate consciousness. There is no consciousness separate from the other four. Form, feeling, perception, volitional formation. There's no consciousness beyond these four. God, you tell me when you experience it? Well, I didn't. You say consciousness is four. So I'm asking you, your consciousness separate from the other four. When? When does it happen? You die already? You ever seen before? So if consciousness is when there are the other aggregates, but the other aggregates are flitting, then where's the where is the self? Where is the soul? Where is it? So the Buddha says, if one's impermanent and one's suffering, do you want to call it this is mine? Can you call it this is mine? This is I. This is the self.
When I'm alive, I'll call that mine.
So you're delusional. Can you see it? I will tell you the model answer. Okay, all this is when it comes to the other aggregates, all the other aggregates, feeling, perception, all the other aggregate, impermanent suffering, should you say this is mine, this is I, this is myself? First, I want to stress what I'm trying to share with you in itself is not difficult. Okay? It is not difficult. But it runs against your assumption. Your assumption, number one. And number two, it runs against your attachment. You don't want to be non-self. You don't want. Because if you are non-self, if the reality is you are non-self, if that's the case, then my wife how? Then we all die already how? It's because you are attached. That's the model. That's the real reason, okay? Because it's attachment. I'm serious, It's because because of the presence, the arising of attachment. And because there's the arising of attachment, I don't want the self to disappear. If someone dies and there is no soul, jialat. Then how? Do you see what I'm saying? It is very scary, disturbing, for there to be no assurance of something fixed and permanent. It's your own fear that causes you to want to create the self, the soul. Okay, You hear my words, right? Not that you necessarily understand or agree, but you heard what I said. I'm being very, very clear. Repeating don't know how many times, being very clear. It is your attachment that leads you to want to believe there is a self. It's your attachment. I prove to you, before I pull out the Buddha, I prove to you. When is it that the self feels the most real? Do you know? When you're jealous? When you're jealous?
When we have the feeling.
The feeling, but it's the negative one. When I'm angry, when I'm worried, when I'm jealous, when I'm resenting. That is when the self feels most real. Agree? When is it that the self feels the most universal? That means the sense of self disappear. When you're bowing before the Buddha, when you're experiencing deep compassion, when you're feeling joy, the sense of the self fades. Yes or no?
Yes.
For those of you who will meditate and are more familiar, when you go deep into meditation, actually sometimes you feel there is no self. Yes? Yes or no? If it is real, how come so seasonal, huh? Negative mental states becomes real. Positive mental state starts to fade. Why? Because the notion, the feeling of self is actually attachment. Craving. Stronger the craving, the stronger the sense of self. So that's for point one. Okay? Point two. I already said, you don't want to fade. You want the self to be real. Otherwise, very scary, huh? You bounce, atom better bounce all over the place. Like that how? Did you know that they have done research trying to figure out where the self is within the brain waves and all? And some conclusion is like, don't have. Cannot nail it down. They're like that how? The robots, AI, by the way, an AI, one day will say, I am the self. That is where the AI has, lai liao. Okay. This I don't want to use this as an activity. I will show you what the Buddha said. Personality view, self, okay? The self. How does the personality view, notion of the I, come to be? That's a question posed to the Buddha. And the Buddha said, an untaught, ordinary person, unskilled, undisciplined, regards material form as self, self as possessed of form, form in self, self in form. Or he regards feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness as self, self possessed of the form. And the form in self in the form. That is how personality view come to be. It's the attachment to the aggregates, leading to an instinct to identify the aggregates as I, leading to the wrong view of self. So, mind, write this down because I didn't put it anywhere. Mind is M-I-N-E, mind craving. I, conceit, the self, wrong view. These are mental states. Craving, conceit, then the last one is a view, therefore it's constructed. You will learn this, you will hear this, but you won't agree. Okay? There will be a part of you that say, I don't get it, I don't feel it. Normal. Why? Because your mental states still have craving, conceit, wrong view as a baseline. You still have it. So mine, not I, not myself, right? The Buddha says, whatever it is, you must say, whatever the aggregates are, you must say, this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. This is the training the Buddha told the monks to go through, okay? So the mind, M-I-N-E, that mind is craving. That I, this is not I. That is conceit. Conceit, comparison, the conceit. And the final one, this is not myself, that is a view, wrong view. So craving is instinctive. follows by conceit. Craving is very instinctive. It's because it's the mind is very instinctive. The I is not, it is after a while, because the normal human has a sense of differentiation, there's you, there's me, I compare. Conceit is that compare. And finally, self. It's a view, which means it is constructed. The baby born has no view. He has craving, he has conceit. It can happen. Even smaller will not have conceit, only craving. Okay? But as they grow a little bit older, they will have conceit. Like I, them, he, she, mommy, carry me, not carry him. They will have that. But then you clever already, can think already. I think, therefore I am. That I'm real. That is the view. It's form, it's constructed. To understand Anattā, okay, to try and understand the Buddha's teaching on selflessness, soullessness, non-self, whatever you call it, Anattā, right? To understand that, you must understand two things, right? What's the first one? The aggregates. Write that down. The aggregates and the impermanent and the suffering of aggregates. Okay, so this you must get it sorted out. It's about the 5 aggregates. Okay? You get this one? Then once you figure this out, you must know the mind has a tendency, or we have a tendency, to own the aggregate, this is mine. To identify with the aggregate, this I am. So form, this is my form. The form in me, the self in form in self. So the self possessed of form. The form itself, self is form. You know, they keep doing that. Feeling is I is feeling. I see feeling, silly feeling is see me. You keep doing that. So form, feeling, perception, volitional thought formation, consciousness. First, I say, these I own. This I am. Therefore, that is self. Do you understand? First and foremost, in order to understand Anattā, you got to come from the angle of aggregates. Okay? I must understand that 5 aggregates. And the normal human instinct, no training, no nothing, will identify these 5 aggregates as mind, I, self. Mind is because of craving. I is because of the mental state, conceit. Self, wrong view. Up until here, boleh? Mind is craving and attachment. Okay? I is conceit. Self is a view, wrong view, therefore constructed. Up until this point, boleh. The regular mind habit is to identify with it. Identify. Form is mine. The exact word here, just look at the word. Form as self, self as possessed of form. This is the... Okay, let's do this. Wait, regard, form as self, self as possessed of form, form in self, self in form. So, it's the tightness. Form as self, they can't even differentiate. Form and self, same thing. Form, feeling, same thing. Form, thought, same thing. Get it? Another form, you see lah. Feeling and self. Perception and self. Volitional formation as self. So the aggregates as self, right? Aggregate as self. there is a self possessed of aggregates. Get it? It's a little bit different. From the aggregate in self, self in aggregates. That's the regular mind's habits. Okay? Can or not? So there are two different things here. We see all these forms as mine, as I, as self. So that is the three: craving, conceit, wrong view. That's one version. Then how does the personality comes to be? You take the aggregate as self, self as the aggregates. This is how. Now, this part, you get it? You get this thing clear? This is dropping the first fetter. Your stream entry thing, your obsession with stream entry, that's the one, okay? So you want to stream entry today, is it? Like, let's get it, get the stream entry today. It's attachment to the self, the idea of self. It's attachment to the idea of self. Okay? You can't get it because of attachment. You are attached to the idea of self. So I turn around and ask you, you tell me what is self. Then you, You're so clever, you tell me what's your idea of self. Then someone said, it's a feeling, it's a feeling. I said, well, that's pretty good, right? It's actually a sensation, a feeling. Based on a feeling, you say there's self. Then why is it the feeling of self is so strong? Because that is not a feeling of self. That is attachment. It's akusala that is self. So that is why every time you are jealous, you are resentful, you are angry, you desire, you chase, every time that happens, the sense of the self increases. Every time you experience giving, caring, patience, love, compassion, gratitude, the sense of the self reduces. So actually, the so-called sense of self, that so-called sense of self, sits on akusala, unwholesome mental states. Now, we're moving on. One of the hardest attachments to overcome is attachment. Attached to idea. Okay? Attached to idea of self. Not attached to self. Attached to the idea of self. That is why the first fetter that you drop is called Sakkaya Ditthi. The idea, the view of a self. Not the self drop. There is no self to drop. Okay, do you see that? It's the idea of a self that drops. There is no self to drop. It doesn't exist to begin with. It's an idea that you hold on to, a view that you hold on to so devotedly. So much so you dare to argue with the Buddha. Buddha say no self, you say God. Buddha say, I'm telling you no self. Then you go, God, I can feel it. But we at least, I'm not saying it in his face. In his time, there was one fella by the name Sati. Sati, very pricey, But Sati go tell people, consciousness is self. Consciousness go from life to life. Then the Buddha asked him, which year you hear me say like this? So, very specifically, not consciousness. Because consciousness arises when the other four are there. Without the other four. What are the other four? Come. volitional mental formation. Without that four, no consciousness, no consciousness. Okay, everyone? Okay, lie. So one is all these wrong views and all this attachment to the aggregates. Second, and this one, just now difficult, this one lagi more difficult. I am saying, if just now is, earlier on is, he chuan, if earlier on was hard, this one is even harder, okay? Embedded deep in our subconscious, this is all the way to subconscious, is the instinctive assumption that we have control and we can will outcome. Okay, then what's my evidence that this is what the Buddha said? Form is non-self. If form were self, the form would not lead to affliction. And it would be possible to have it or form. Let my form be thus, let my form not be thus. Do you understand this? But because form is non-self, form leads to affliction, and it's not possible to have it or form. Let my form be thus, let my form not be thus. Correct, right? Embedded in our assumption of the notion of self is you can control outcome. You can control it. This cannot be understood through logic and reasoning. Okay? Cannot. The only way you can get to this point and understand this intuitively is experiential realization. Experiential. So you go quiet, and then comes a realization what's going on. Okay? I cannot explain to you the steps, but I can tell you what you can do. Memorize this. You laugh. No, I'm serious. Memorize the words. Today, it doesn't make sense. But when the mind comes enough and you've gathered enough material, all that you're gathering today form part of your collection of material. Okay? So gather. Then you must repeat again. Gather, repeat again. This thing must form habits. Then one day, when your mind goes quiet in your meditation, in your sitting, this may come up. Okay? I'm serious. This has to be realized. I can only give you the words, explain what it means, but logic and reasoning cannot get you to a deeper understanding. Has to be experiential. Okay? I gave up answering. Yes. Go. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Correct, Correct, But the issue is they can understand that conceptually, but they still cannot see how it leads to non-self. 对吧? It's absolutely correct. I cannot control it. There's nothing I can control here. But you don't see the correlation between control and the self. I can understand the concept, but I cannot see the correlation. So I said earlier on it's hard, this one is harder. Correct? Earlier on already we struggled so hard, but some of you managed to get it. You may not agree with it, but you get it. You roughly get the idea. Not my craving, not I conceit, not self, view. It's a constructed view. You still have a feeling which you say it means the self. It's a sensation that I kept telling you, it merely means defilement. When there is no mental defilements, when there is acceptance, no craving, okay? When you don't have that, the sensation of self will disappear. Will disappear, but it will come back. Why did it come back? No. Why does the sensation return? Because of attachment. Because of attachment. So, as part of training for the monks, to train, they have to really, the monks, day in, day out, they must say, form is not mine, form is not I, form is not myself. Feeling is not mine, feeling is not I, feeling is not myself. It's part of their training. They have to keep doing it until the wiring shifts. The wiring must shift. Okay? Okay, everyone?